and welcome to Showtime at Japan Expert Insights. As always, we got Maya in Tokyo. Hey. We have Kei Kurosawa on the show tonight. And this is the part where we usually just chit chat and kind of BS a little bit while we wait for everybody to sign in. A couple things of note. Shout out to all my friends at the Chicago Japanese Club, which I got to meet on Tuesday. A wonderful group of people. And if you're Japanese and in Chicago, become a member. It's not that expensive, and they do a lot of wonderful things for the Japanese community. So I highly suggest, or even if you're not and you're just interested in Japanese culture, look them up. They're a great organization, and I can't, I can't say anything better about them. That they're just fantastic. Couple quick notes as we're kind of getting ready for today. There was a tragedy over the weekend where some nut decided to drive into a crowd of people at a Filipino event, a festival. And, I don't know as a society or as a civilization, we're ever going to get past this sort of thing. It's always horrifying when it happens. And I don't know. What I do know is that one of the lovely things about being a part of this show is that, and I say it almost every week, we build bridges here. We build communities. We talk about how we have America, we have Japan, and every episode's a way to understand each other a little bit better. And there's a new twist to this week because it's not just America and Japan. It's America, Japan, and the Philippines, which, as people who watch the show know, I talk about this all the time because my grandmother was born in Cebu and she was in Manila during World War II. And she would have turned 100 last week. She passed away in 1993. And it's been a long time. I'm also learning not to say as much while I'm doing this. I say it all the time. I'm getting as bad. Like,
you're getting better.
Barack Obama will be like, we're going to today do this. I'm like, stop it. But I did it again. She would have loved this show. And she would have loved all of this. So on that note, we have a new generation with us today, Kei Kurosawa. She's just coming off of a star turn in the film Crosspoint, which I don't know if it's available in the States yet. I'll find out. It's going to make its debut in Japan in a couple of weeks. And we're going to have the director and another performer from that film 2 weeks from now. But today, we have Kei Kurosawa, and she's part of a new generation of talent. We get to say we had her on the show before she became big, and we hope that while we're still working this rickety old podcast, that she'll come back and say hello.
Oh.
And she is from the Philippines. She's a part of Star Magic in the Philippines, and also I think it's RPM Artist Management.
Yeah.
Yeah. And welcome to the show. We're happy to have you and your perspective because we've had a lot of people who are older. And now we have the generation.
Thank you so much, Michael and Maya. I'm so happy to be here.
We have comments, by the way. If you're on LinkedIn, you don't have to say this much, but feel free to chime in and say hello if you get any questions for us. Okay.
You can do the same on YouTube as well. So
sure.
yes,
watching on YouTube
there. Yes.
Yeah. Or if you're watching here on LinkedIn, just feel free to make some comments, say hello, or ask some questions while we're at it. So we always kind of start this podcast with the same question, but it's a good question. Kei, why do you do what you do? How did you get into performing?
Ever since I was young, I've always been into different kinds of performing arts. I studied in a school where it's not necessarily a performing arts school, but all the students there were honed to be mastered in a specific kind of performing arts skill. So for me, I was in the choir and the glee club as a kid, as early as 7 years old. And my parents enrolled me for ballet classes at the young age of 3. So I've been dancing since I was 3 years old. I did classical ballet, tap dancing, jazz until I was 13. And then after that, I got into K-pop. very much, and I wanted to go in that direction. So I studied how to dance hip hop, pop, femme, and all of that. Um, but then and then I also joined dance teams in high school. And then
Mm.
I've been into so many different kinds of things. I'm a Scorpio, so
Oh,
it's a
hello
tendency.
there.
Oh my
Me
gosh,
too.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Scorpios tend to be interested in a lot of things, not just one. So after dancing, I kind of fell out of love. Not really, but I still like it. But I discovered that I really have a thing for songwriting and music. My parents taught me how to sing when I was young, and I like writing very much, but not in a way that I would write novels and such. But I figured that songwriting might be the perfect outlet. So ever since then, I've been into those kinds of things. And then during the pandemic, I got scouted by Star Magic. I didn't have any kind of acting experience then, and so they put me into acting workshops. I trained in the Philippines and also here in Japan when I started filming with the director of Crosspoint. And so I fell in love with acting because through acting, I could experience being different kinds of people in just one lifetime. And I find that really fascinating. And yeah, I absolutely fell in love, and I'm still trying to keep up with all the things that I want to do as of the moment.
And how did you meet Donnie Orialis? Because we'll have him on the show next week, or 2 weeks from now. But how did all that happen? Because obviously you got you're in 2 of his films, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So I was still in high school then. My brother here in Japan, my brother is a videographer, photographer, and he has his own studio. But before doing all that, he just for fun, he starred in a couple of director Donnie's short films.
Mm. Right.
Mm.
And my brother posted a Facebook post for my birthday, and director Donnie asked him if I wanted to act. But then during that time, I wasn't really doing all those kinds of things. So after a few years, when director Donnie found out that I was under Star Magic, which is currently the biggest talent agency in the Philippines, he found it as a great opportunity to cast me in his debut film Crosspoint. And so, but before that, he kind of like a trial, he casted me in his indie horror movie. And so
Yeah.
that's where I actually learned how to act. Before that, I didn't have any experience, so I learned firsthand in set. And so that's when he decided that he wanted to, put me on the next level and cast me in Crosspoint, and the rest is history.
And you got to be Takehiro Hira, his
Yeah.
daughter in that movie. Now, for a lot of people who don't know who Takehiro Hira is, if you've seen Shogun, he plays the big bad in that. And you guys shot that before Shogun actually happened, right? Or
I
was it
I
afterwards?
I believe it was during the same time period he was filming Shogun.
Interesting.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
We filmed Crosspoint around 2 years ago in the winter.
Mm,
All
And
right.
I'm not sure if Shogun was finished like filming then.
yeah. I know they were doing that in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So he's going back and forth. So you grew up in the Philippines and now you're in Tokyo.
Yes.
What's it been like to sort of, first of all, being, first of all, 3-part question here. One is like being obviously a half Filipino, half Japanese in Tokyo, that experience, and then working within the Japanese entertainment industry, pros and cons. Like, what have you noticed just being there? Like, what's been your experience?
Well, of course I've gotten used to life in the Philippines. All of my friends are in the Philippines. My agency is based in the Philippines, but then I moved to Japan 2 years ago. So my current setup is that whenever I have projects in the Philippines, I would just fly back instantly. It's just they're just really close to each other, so it's not much of a problem. But I mean, it's always been my dream to live in Japan first of all, my family lives here. My dad and my brothers, they're all here. And they were basically all just waiting for me to graduate in the Philippines. So I'm very happy that I'm here. I get to explore lots of things. I get to go out on my own. But then at first, it was really isolating because I didn't have any friends here growing up because I didn't get to study here. And so I don't know how to speak in Japanese fluently. That's why it's hard for me to make connections. And
And
I
that
don't know.
surprised everybody. When you speak Japanese in the film, and everyone just assumed you could speak
Yeah.
Japanese because we saw she
Yeah.
was at the screening at Asian Pop-Up Cinema here in Chicago 3-4 weeks ago. And when you said, "Oh yeah, I'm not fluent," and everyone went, "What?" And that was so you did fool everybody. But I can imagine that language barrier must be difficult.
Yeah, well, we had a script, and my dad helped me out with it too. So that helped me a lot. And also through while filming Crosspoint, of course, we were working with Japanese staff and foreign staff that already spent a lot of time here in Japan. And of course, I was forced to converse with them in Japanese, or else we wouldn't understand each other, right? So, through that, I learned a lot of Japanese. I even made friends with a girl who couldn't speak in English at all, and we ended up going to Disneyland together, and it was good practice for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that because when you have a script and you have somebody like your father help you, it makes sense that you speak Japanese on set. I mean, well, during the
Yeah.
movie, of course. But once you move into real life, it's really more challenging because there are expressions which people use on a daily basis here, and then they are not in the script, right? So
Yeah.
you have to navigate the everyday Japanese. So I can relate to that. I had a similar challenge when I came to Japan, but my Japanese there was really much worse than yours, I'm sure. So yeah, well, great for you. Just good for you, really, that you have learned and you continue learning, and I love that. And
Thank you.
yeah, I love that because we tend to think, as Michael said, or he wrote in the post, you're the very first guest to our podcast who belongs to Gen Z. And I don't want to sound ageist here, but we always, you know, how people are, our brains are conditioned to stereotype, right? We stereotype based on everything. We stereotype based on age as well. And, you know, once you move into the generation and you have another generation coming after you, or two or three, and then you tend to think, the younger people are not the way we were. And it's really, I don't like that. Okay. And that's why, because I don't like that, I want to say that you're a wonderful example that we should not stereotype, you know, based on generation.
Thank
Because
you.
I have heard many people, young people don't learn anymore, they don't do this and that. And that's not true.
I said the
You
same
are
thing about my
the
generation.
opposite.
I
Right.
mean, every generation,
Yeah.
things don't change all that much. Every
Yes.
generation, the kids are slackers and they're losers and they're not going to do anything. It's,
Right.
like in Japan in the 14th century, they would look at the kids and be like, yeah, what are they doing? Not knowing that,
Yeah.
put your sword this way. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
but
it is
it's
how it
a
is.
it's a common misconception among
Mm-hmm.
us Gen Z that we have it easier because of social media, especially in the entertainment industry too. I mean, I've been directly affected by this as well. People think that we have it easier because we have TikTok and Instagram, and people think that we are here in this business just for shallow reasons such as internet fame and such. But we also have big dreams, and just like many others before us, we are also very much struggling and trying to prove ourselves. And there's extra pressure now because now that people think that everything is easier for us, then it has to be, smoother. Like our journey
Right.
has to be smoother and swifter, like compared to past generations. But I don't think that it's the case. It's actually much more difficult right now, and
Well,
and the
yeah.
competition is really tight.
Well, I
Yeah.
was going to say, because you always have to be on. 'Cause that's the one thing. I was borderline. I was still in the analog generation that more migrated
Mm-hmm.
into the digital
Yeah.
generation. And the difficulties of like you're also on social media, and I see you
Yeah.
posting all the time. You were eating a Chicago pizza, like
Yeah.
when you were here in town.
Right,
Like,
yes.
but that's just it, right? There's no
Mhm.
real break, is there?
Mhm.
Because, and
Yeah.
I've talked to people who are in the industry, who've been in the music business, who are younger, and there is that pressure that you always have to be posting, you always have to be on, and there's always people who aren't that nice, who are on the internet, who are always giving you crap,
Yeah.
and there's just
Yeah.
this whole other dimension that I know when we were talking about to Ijichi-san, and he came up like in the 70s and 80s, and it was like, oh yeah, that was not an issue. And so I
Mhm.
was going to say, like, so you're coming up on this, and we see you on Instagram, and how important is it to be successful, do you think, in social media in order to have a successful career in acting and to have these other pursuits?
Well, well, just from my point of view, this is what I know. It doesn't mean that it's completely true, but business is business, right? And so when you have a fan base, and when you have people that would actually pay to see you, then businesses endorsements will come towards you, so
Mhm.
then you'll get more exposed to different kinds of projects, and that's why it's really important to have a follower count these days. That's just from my point of view.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
Yeah.
being obviously the other part of those questions was being half Filipino, half Japanese in
Hmm.
Tokyo. What has been your experience over these last 2 years? Besides the language barrier, do you find yourself, like, because I think a lot of people find that very interesting. I think in
Hmm.
the old days, there used to be more of a, I don't know what the word you would use, Maya. Maybe you can help me out with this, where if somebody was sort of like half Japanese, half something, it was almost like,
Oh no, people would talk here about racism. I mean, openly they would say that yes, there was racism in schools, also at the workplace, and here and there. And so I wonder. Nowadays we don't like to use the word, but of course it doesn't mean the things are. How can I say? I'm not saying that Japan hasn't changed. Actually, I have seen how it has changed for the
it's
better.
changed a lot.
But
Yeah.
this is from my personal experience once again, and for many other people, it may still be the same, right? And so that's why, Kay, what is your experience in this, in from this angle?
Well, I haven't been I haven't, how do I say this, I haven't been involved in different kinds of communities here yet. The only opportunity that I've got to experience, being with other people was during the set of Crosspoint. But um, I would say that as a Filipino Japanese, I tend to get insecure about how people see me. Of course, I look fully Japanese. My parents even agree that I don't look Filipino at
Right.
all. And so when I have to go, for example, to the gym or to the post office, like anywhere where I have to speak in Japanese, and they hear that my Japanese is very like toddler level, it brings my self-esteem down. It's hard
Mhm.
to be confident when you're not um fluent in the language
Right. Yeah.
where everyone is speaking in. So that's one thing, and that's also a reason why I find it really hard to make connections here. I do have friends, but we're all half Filipino, and I'm very grateful for that, because the friends that I have here who are half Filipino, half Japanese, they're all amazing too in their own respective fields, and it makes me feel very much safer.
Tell us a little bit about this whole community, because I think a lot of people, once again, we last week, when we had Moeka, or
Mm.
Moeka,
Yes.
Moeka, she was on, and Moeka Ida, and she was talking about the boys' life and girls' life in Japan, and a lot of people don't associate, like, that type of entertainment with Japan. They just don't, and especially from other parts of the world. The other thing is, I think, in terms of these sort of mixed communities, with like a Filipino community in Japan, I mean, it seems obvious, but a lot of people, it's not top of mind. So could you tell us a little bit about, which was interesting too, because if you've seen Crosspoint, and I don't think a lot of people have, but check it out. One of the cool things that the director Donnie did was he integrated a lot of his experiences of Filipino
Yeah.
culture or Filipino communities in Japan. So I'd like you to touch a little bit more about that.
Hmm. Well, the great thing about the Filipino community here in Japan is that we are all united. You know, we help each other out. For example, since Crosspoint is going to be screening in a few weeks, I already have all my Filipino aunties here, my mom's friends, sharing the posters everywhere and promoting, like, word of mouth, talking about it to all of our friends. And we see a Filipino on the street, and they instantly know that you're Filipino, and so you have a nice conversation and you get to promote yourself too, and they get to promote their own businesses. And I find that really nice. And Filipinos are very jolly and warm, and
Yeah.
so just seeing a Filipino on the street or hearing someone speak in Filipino in a random store here in Japan, it's a huge source of comfort for me. And I could say the same for all of my Filipino friends here in Japan. I am so thankful for them, because if they weren't around, then I wouldn't know what to do. So yeah.
No, that's wonderful. And yes, it's one of the things that I have noticed with all the Filipino friends I have. They are not in Japan, they are in the Philippines, but they sometimes come to Japan, visit the country. And all of them are so warm and, as you
Yeah.
say, very jolly, right? And it's such a pleasure to spend time with them all the time. And I noticed also one thing which is amazing and which I love about the Filipino people, that the Filipinos are very well educated. And I love that because we tend to think about the Philippines as a country that has a lot of poverty. And I believe that there is, I haven't been there. And what we hear probably is true to a large extent. But at the same time, there is, I mean, the education there is amazing because with everybody I have talked with, it's been a pleasure to go into any different topic or, let's say, aspect of life or business. And there is never, we have never run out of topics and the conversations run deep, which is really amazing. And I love that about the country, how the country provides such a good education for its people. And we don't see it nowadays very often, right? So it's a pity, but yeah, it's wonderful, and I see it with you as well. I
Oh,
hear
thank
I
you.
hear you, and I feel it, and it's I don't know, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
very much
you.
for yes,
Thank you
yeah,
very much. I'm so
really great.
honored. Thank you.
So Kurosawa-san, what you're working on an album? Are you working on an album right now? Because you also have a musical career. You're acting, but you're also doing music right now.
Kind of,
Like,
yeah.
kind of.
I mean, yeah, I only have one song out, but
Okay.
that's still something. Yeah.
What's your next? So, what are you hoping? What's your plans? Like, obviously, you're coming. Crosspoint's going to be released soon. Are you working on any other projects? What are you hoping to work on? What's the future look like for you right now?
Well, as of now, I don't have any acting projects lined up. So, just so that I'm not idle, I have a band in the Philippines. I work with them. They make instrumentals for me, and then I would write the lyrics and compose the melody. So that's what I've been working on now. I have a couple of songs in my draft, a lot, probably around 100 already. But yeah, I mean, it's too risky for me to just carelessly upload ev- some of the stuff that I have, especially now that um I don't really have like protection towards like my music, so I couldn't really promote them in a way that I want as of now. So I'm just waiting for a perfect opportunity for me to get all my music out there. Yeah.
I was going to say because that's got to be part of the people are in the beginning of their career, which
Mhm.
for me was such a long time ago. But is that sort of issue, I would imagine too. And once again, things that a new generation, because everything's so instantaneous. If you have a great idea, or a screenplay or a movie or something or a song you're trying to work on, is how much you want to release out to the public and how much you need to keep to yourself until you've achieved a sort of certain momentum if you will, or notoriety, to where you could, push back a little bit if someone decides that you're just going to take all your stuff and run with it. So how do you balance that, the relationship with technology and your career and your goals? What do you find is like, have you come up with a system yet, or are you still trying to wing it a little bit?
Well, first of all, I'm very thankful. I mean, I know that I was rambling about how it's so much harder for us because of social media,
Oh, don't
but
worry.
at
We ramble
But
all the
it's
yeah,
time on this
true.
show. This is a show,
yeah,
And
believe me. I'm always.
yeah, yeah. And
but at
also
the
it's
same
true.
time,
It is
So
true. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
I'm
but
glad I
at the
didn't grow up
same
during
time, I'm
social
very
media.
thankful because I get to curate, my how do you call this, how people are able to
Persona.
perceive me. Yeah, I get to curate my persona in a way that I want and is true to myself. I have full control over how I'm marketing myself as well, and it's easier to experiment on things too. And and through social media and technology, you're not really, um if you don't have a job currently going on, like a project, you can still have your own personal projects to work on and possibly earn from, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's truly a blessing as long as people know how to use technology and social media and AI responsibly.
Right.
Yeah, the responsibly, I think that's also a key word which we need to remember, because sometimes it's easy to get swayed, and
Yeah.
not pay much attention to the way we use this aspect or this technology or another technology. But that's, yes, that's amazing. So, well, you basically have your Instagram account.
Yes.
And is that the main medium you use at the moment, or do you have other social media accounts where people can find you and follow you?
Oh, well, my main account is on Instagram. Well, that's where I'm very active on. I used to be very active on TikTok as well. Around 2 years ago, I was having very high engagement because I was doing a different kind of, like, different kinds of content back then. I was doing makeup. I was reposting like quotes and relatable stuff on TikTok. I also did like comedy stuff on TikTok then. I don't know how that happens. Sometimes on TikTok, it's always the ones where you put least effort in. That's the ones that are going to
Yeah.
gain more traction. So it's funny, but I was doing quite well on TikTok, but then the algorithm shifted, and so I'm having a hard time getting back on track, which is also part of my struggle with social media.
Right.
It
Yeah.
gets really annoying sometimes, but I'm trying to focus on long form content now. Now that I don't have anything going on, like I don't have any projects lined up, I'm working on vlogs and
Hmm.
fashion content on YouTube. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
So, yeah, so our viewers, they can find you on Instagram, they can find you on YouTube,
Yes.
and well, probably if your account is still live on TikTok. So if they want
Yes,
to
it
see
is.
some
It
of
is.
your early works,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's very Gen Z though. I gotta warn
That's
everyone.
that's
that's
fine.
fine.
Okay.
We,
Well,
we
it's funny because a lot of people have had success on Instagram and YouTube, especially
Yes.
people who are in Japan, because Japan's sort of inherently, a lot of people are very interested in Japan. And if you have a
Hmm.
great show, like gosh, there's so many people I know I can think of, like abroad in Japan, Sirisan, like they do really well, and all they do is just talk about their life in Japan, and people really love it. It just seems like one of the nice things about Japan is that there is a natural interest. I know I'm one of those people who's just naturally
Yes.
interested in the country and the culture, and especially a perspective from somebody who isn't in Japan. Although Miki from Japan is just so delightful,
Hmm.
but also people who come in and they just talk about their life and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And once again, it's interesting because I know, like, they talked about, like, some of the cast of Stranger Things, not necessarily the main cast, but some of them, especially some of the B players, would talk about how they had to have a Instagram presence and a social media presence in order to be cast. They kind of felt like they had to have so many followers,
Hmm.
otherwise they weren't even going to get looked at. It's something like that. And it was interesting that there was that level of pressure that I have to have all these followers in order for me to have a successful acting career.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that's true or not. Do you feel like you have to do you feel like it's kind of expected now, or not really? In Japan? I
I'm
know it's
not
a tricky
sure
question.
about Japan. I'm not sure about Japan
Mhm,
because I don't think it's that important here in Japan, especially in the film industry.
mhm.
But for mainstream media, such as maybe Netflix shows or films, it might be a huge requirement, to have a following. In the Philippines, sometimes they do require a following because again, who is going to watch your show if no one knows who you
Right.
are, right?
Uh,
Yeah, so it's a
mhm.
struggle. Sometimes I do wish that new faces could be given a chance to showcase their talent and you know break through
Right.
and be one of
Without the
those
pressure.
people that
Right.
people would pay and
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, once again, if they can break through without the pressure of performing first on social media, right?
Yeah.
Because as Michael mentioned earlier, you have to be on all the time. And at the same time, you have to be careful how you present yourself and how you curate your profile there, and you're still true to yourself. And that's not an easy task.
It
So,
is very hard, yeah, because in that pressure you tend to lose yourself because other than wanting to become an artist, wanting to be recognized for your craft, you also have to sell your true self and be the product, it's
right.
very difficult and sometimes you start to wonder if you're still doing this for the art or for superficial reasons. That is why it's important to stay focused on what you really want and not get swayed by social media and numbers.
That's a trapping. I mean, obviously, one of my day things is to do marketing and stuff. So first of all, the
Mhm.
algorithm's changing. Yeah, they've done
Yeah.
it for years, every couple of years, and it drives you crazy. But what you're talking about in terms of like the integrity of the art, that makes sense because I mean, I'm more obviously in the art world. I mean, I've written a screenplay, but I'm more in the art world in
Yeah.
Chicago here, and a lot of the artists talk about that. You know, part of the reason why a banana duct tape tool all does so well because it's so weird and so Instagrammy, but is it really good art? And
Yeah.
there's a huge debate on that. I think it's clever. I don't think it was worth the money they paid for it. But the idea is that I have to do a show. I know people who run galleries in Chicago, and they always dance around. They're showing paintings, stuff like that, and they feel like they have to perform all the time because that's what's expected.
Yeah.
But yes, it can diminish the sort of the integrity, which, by the way, the selling out thing has been in the arts since the beginning of time. Are you selling out or are you not? Especially in the 20th century, it became a thing. But it is a tricky balance.
Yeah.
And it's not just in your industry. I think any entertainment, art, or performing industry, it's about how much do I want to show, and am I just painting something like someone was saying there was a guy just all he does is throw paint, and it makes for great Instagram content, but is the
Mhm.
art any good? And only time will tell.
Yeah, but I think we all just have to ride the tide and learn how to enjoy both things one
Mm.
way or another. Yeah.
When we had a chance to talk to Sakura, or I did actually, when they were in, it was actually that was the day before when we were in Asian Pop Up Cinema in Chicago. I got to meet you Sunday, and then
Yeah.
Saturday we had Junichi Yasada and
Mhm.
Sakura, who were part of a Samurai in Time, and the director,
Yes.
assistant director, and she was in it. And I asked her, I said, "What type of roles do you want to do in the future?" And it's such a great question. So Kurosawa
Mm.
side, what type of roles are you looking forward to? Like right now, if there's an agency and it's like, we want you to cast you in this role, what kind of stuff do you want to do?
Well, ah, well, physically, I look like a very well. People say it. I just look really nice and sweet and friendly and bubbly. Typical Japanese kawaii girl. But I do want to experiment with roles that would not fit my physical looks. So probably like a villain or a crazy character or a disturbed individual. But I was able to do one of my dream roles in the Philippines. It was for our series called Zoomers, where we did girls love in there, and it was my dream role because I got to push barriers, especially in the Philippines. It's a very conservative country. We're all Catholic there. I mean, most of the people there are Catholic, and so they're not really open with LGBT content. But it's nice to be able to make a change through um, being able to represent the LGBT community in media. And I'm so glad that I was able to do that. I'm sorry, my
Right.
my fax machine is ringing. Yeah.
That's
That's
yeah,
okay.
that's
It's a new part. They're going to cast you
Yeah.
for that villain. It's coming in through
Yeah.
fax right now, actually. No,
Yeah.
so I think our audience, especially because we have a lot of people from Japan and America, Zoomers. Tell us about that, and tell us about this role and how you got on there. A lot of people probably don't know about this
Okay,
show.
yeah. It is really fun in the Philippines. Trendy series and dramas do really well, teen dramas and stuff like that. And this happened after the pandemic, so our agency was trying to launch like the new generation of teen stars. And in the past, during the 90s and the early 2000s, lots of dramas with ensemble casts did really well, and so they wanted to play with that formula again. And so what we did for this, at first it was a reality show. It was a televised audition process.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so our audition is all up on YouTube, and after that, so we got selected. Our web series was also released on YouTube for about 2 weeks. We did 2 seasons of this show, and it was really nice because other than it, other than being just a simple teen drama with romance elements and coming of age stuff, as I said, it tackled stuff about mental health. Just stuff that people were not really comfortable with back then. Mental health, um, LGBT issues, what else? Poverty and stuff like that. So
Mm.
it's social media influencing. It's really nice because we were able to make a Gen Z version of what we used to have in the Philippines before.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
Is this? Can you find this on YouTube?
yeah.
Yes, it's on
Okay.
YouTube. We have 2 seasons uploaded on YouTube. It's called Zoomers.
Mm.
Under the channel ABS-CBN, I think. ABS-CBN YouTube channel. Yeah.
ABN, 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 CBN.
ABS-CBN,
Ah,
yes.
ABS, CBN.
CBN.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of like our NHK in the Philippines. So we have 2 seasons there, and the audition process is also up on YouTube. So it's a whole trilogy.
How many episodes are you in?
Uh, I don't remember, but
No.
I was in most of them. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to check out Kei Kurosawa's, there you go. Zoomers, look it up on
Thank you.
YouTube. It's
Thank you
very
very
cool.
much. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
I haven't
lines
checked
in
it out yet. I
English
can't see
here
the
as
score.
well. So,
All right.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience being on the show?
well, I well, that was kind of one of my first real acting projects where I had a role with a name, with a personality, and it was challenging because I don't want to spoil it, but it was challenging because I had to do things that I wasn't really doing in my own personal life. And so, in that series, I learned how to be more open. I learned how to be more vulnerable. And I learned how to play around with acting and experiment with different kinds of techniques and exploring more parts of myself that I didn't know about back then. And
And
also
oh,
to, yeah, and
no,
also
go
to
ahead.
mingle with people my age.
And so you've worked on obviously a Filipino television show and then a Japanese film.
Yes.
What were the major differences did you find between the two techniques? Was there any I mean, it's hard to. I mean, obviously, it's hard to just generalize between one show and
Mm-hmm.
one film. But were there any noticeable differences working in the Philippines?
Ooh. Well, both experiences were really very pleasant, but I would say filming in the Philippines, it was much more comfortable for me because I was among my friends who were also my
Right.
co-stars, and we were all under the same agency. And in the show Zoomers, we were all starting, we were all like, trying to build our names in the business. So we were all like, in this together. It was very fun. It felt like a retreat with my friends, and we're just filming and like trying to make all of our dreams come true together. So that was very comfortable, and also because we can speak in a language that we are all very comfortable
Right.
in. And in Japan, at first, of course, I was very nervous about it. First of all, I was working with people who are way older than I am. In Crosspoint, I don't think I worked with anyone who's around the same age group as I am. So that was one worry of mine, and also the language barrier. But then what I found really nice with working with Japanese and foreigners in Japan, in the Crosspoint set, is that they were all very respectful and nice to me. It was I felt that was the time I truly felt like I was an artist, because they treated me as an equal. They didn't really treat me like I was a newbie, or really I didn't really feel that they were looking down on me. And so I gained a lot of confidence from that experience, thinking that if these kinds of people like Takehiro Hira-san, treated me so, how do you call this, with respect and as an equal, then why would I let other people look down on me?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really um big moment for me, for my confidence and self-esteem, and until now I still carry it with me.
And you got to tour because obviously you came to the States just a month ago.
Yeah,
And how was the
yeah.
response when you were in New York and Chicago? You went to New York, Chicago, and Toronto, right? Or all
No,
three?
I went to California, Chicago, and then New York.
Okay, what was was that your first time in the state? You've been in the States before, right?
I've been to the States before. 12 years ago, I was
Okay, so it's been a bit.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
12. I was a
Okay,
kid.
yeah, so
So
definitely different
Oh, okay.
yeah.
experience. Obviously, showing the film here in the States and the reception. I mean, I was here for Chicago, but I'd love to know your perspective in
Well,
terms of like being able to screen the film here in the States and then the reception and whatnot.
yeah, of course, it was nerve-wracking because, well, in the Philippines, it was received quite well, but because of the cultural differences, I didn't know what to expect from Americans, and um, how they would receive the film and how they would understand it from their point of view. But I I witnessed it firsthand in Chicago. Everyone enjoyed the film, and what I really appreciate is that those who watched the film stayed until the last part of the Q&A session in Chicago, and I found that amazing because not everyone's going to sit through another hour of just the cast talking, if they didn't really enjoy the film, right? So I it hit different for me, of course. In the Philippines, when I saw the film a couple of times, I started to get, just very used to it, just being like, oh yeah, I'm just watching it again all over again. I know what's gonna happen. But seeing it in Chicago, a whole different setting, with a very clear screen and completely different kinds of people, the scenes that we were watching was hitting differently for me. I was very emotional there. I was right beside my mom, and I was tearing up because I, like, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would be in such a beautiful city like Chicago, promoting a huge film that I still can't believe that I'm a part of. And it's all happening in that moment. It was all so crazy to me. And then everyone was so nice to me afterwards. I got to meet lots of different kinds of beautiful people, such as Michael. And I don't. I can't explain it. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Well, Chicago's a fun city. We're easy to talk
It
to because
is.
we talk. That's why we're
I
called the Windy City,
know.
because we talk. It's people think it's the wind. No, I think I've said this before in the podcast. It's because we talk all the time, and that's why we're the Windy City. It's true.
I
But
love it.
thank you for that compliment. No, I mean I think people were really impressed because I think the two things what people were impressed by your performance was one that you weren't a natural Japanese speaker, which by the way that happens. I mean Greta Lee in past lives didn't speak Korean, and she had to learn.
Really?
Yeah, she had to learn Korean
I love
in
her.
a
Oh
very
my
specific type of Korean in order
yeah.
to make sure. Yeah, she had a dialect coach to make sure it was on target.
And she had a lot of lines in Korean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she does a
Wow.
huge chunk of that movie in Korean. So yeah, so it's so people were impressed, but also because you sing in that movie too.
Yeah.
Because everyone kept asking, like, is that really you? Because a lot of times people that's not. Well, I shouldn't say anymore. It used to be almost common that the performer was not that wasn't the same voice, and then
Yeah.
it seems like almost now it is, and so it's
Mm.
so. But I think people were really impressed that you
Thank
kind of had
you.
that that you. I think that's why and also too, I think because the story was so moving. It kind of comes up. I'm not going to say too much about it, but especially that scene where you're performing and
Yeah.
Hiro-san, your dad shows up and you can just see like everybody's getting hit like in
Yeah.
that film. Like, oh my gosh, like this, and someone once said like about films, don't blow the beginning and the ending. And everything in the middle is fine. Just don't screw that up. And there was a case, I think, with Crosspoint that the ending, it was a good movie, and the ending really elevated that film. Because it was touching. And also to your performance. I mean, you just like, without giving too much away, like you just have to lay it out, towards the end.
Yeah.
And so, that was I think it really moved a lot of people in Chicago. So you're probably also sensing that too. And that was a fun, Sophia Wong Bako, I always get it's about you, and her husband Michael do a wonderful job with Asian pop-up cinema. So next
Love
year,
them.
if you're in, you got to check it out for all my
Yeah.
Chicago friends. Yeah. So you want to play a villain. What other projects are you looking? I get that. It's funny because that's what Sakura-san said too. Like she wants to play these sort of extreme roles. Like I want to do this, I
Yeah.
want to do that. Like so, what type of what's your favorite movies? Like what type of movies do you like to do? Is there certain Japanese films or Filipino films that you're like, I love this film and this would be fun to work on something like this?
Well.
I know.
Well,
Yeah, these are the brain buster questions.
I grew up with rom-coms, and I'm obsessed with rom-coms. I watch at least one rom-com a day. If I'm not watching any kind of rom-com, I'm watching a video essay about it, or I'm listening to the soundtrack. And but lately I've been really into just really eerie and creepy Japanese films.
Okay.
Do really
It's
well.
such a complete
They do.
180.
Yeah.
Yeah, such as works by Kiyoshi Kurosawa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, what was in it? Pulse and Cure. I've been really into that,
Cure
and
is a
so I've
good
been reading
movie.
books.
That's
Yeah,
a good movie. And a lot of these movies, by the way, for my American friends here, Criterion Channel has Cure. It has a lot of these films. I think Audition's on there too. So yeah, especially for those who want something. And Netflix has carried a few of them as well here. But I think a lot of the really, really good ones you can find on Criterion Channel. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think it's what makes Japanese horror so interesting is because it really is horrifying because they don't go for the
yeah,
splatter. I mean, they do
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
but it's more psychological and atmospheric.
yeah, and it's more.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, amazing.
But
Really amazing. Yeah.
circling back, being a huge fan of rom-coms, I really appreciate it when there's Asian representation in rom-coms. And I know some people look down on rom-coms because basically they say it's the cheapest kind of movie that you could make because you don't need any effects or, crazy green screen moments. But I do feel like if a rom-com could be executed very well, then that's amazing. So I don't know,
It's all
I
in the
No.
love
dialogue and the nuance of the performances. I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah
all
yeah
the
yeah
rom-coms, when you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes
Right.
it's something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that's sort of
Yes.
high concept, but also too, I mean, Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet are just
Yeah.
fantastic in it. And I'm trying to think of other ones. There was
Yeah,
some. It's I don't
there
want
are.
to say a rom com, but the one film that not Corey Ada, but he did Drive My Car. I'm blessing. He did one called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which was like 3 vignettes, and it was
Mhm.
really something. Both each one of them, because it's about a relationship, a romantic relationship, and
Mhm.
they was done so well. It's gonna drive me nuts. What's his name again? Don't get older. You lose the nouns. The nouns just disappear. He's
I
like,
gotta
who was
look
that
into
guy
that.
who was in that thing last year? Yeah,
Right.
Was it
I'm
from
gonna I'm
last
gonna look
year?
it up. It's yeah, the movie was called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, and the director is, I know it's
Wheel of Fortune.
Ryusuke. Yeah, Ryusuke Hamaguchi. That was his name.
Oh.
Ryusuke
Yeah, he won
Hamaguchi.
for Drive My Car, but that was the other movie he had done that same year. Yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna go check this out.
yeah, because you told me about the one to check out, which was
Yeah,
the one with the girl who was in King's Convenience.
right.
I can't remember that
May
actress.
I ask a question, a clarifying question? Are we talking about Japanese rom-coms or are we talking
About all of them.
about
I was just going to ask you if
all
there
of
was any
them
in
in
particular.
general?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
All
because
of
I
them in
feel
general.
all of them
Yes,
in general.
all
Yeah,
of them in
because
general.
yeah, I think that with the Japanese rom-coms, I think there is depth, which is, how can I say?
Realistic.
Sometimes yes, it's very realistic, and it's well, the relationships and the communication and everything is very deep, and then it happens like you need to watch the movie a couple of times before you
Mhm.
really get everything
Yeah.
about it, and that's one of the things I love about these Japanese rom-coms. Yes, but also there, of course, I mean, I'm not saying this to just disqualify the others. I mean, rom-coms are really a wonderful genre, and as you say, Kate, the fact that they do not require that much budget doesn't make them less worthy of
Yes.
watching anyway.
When you think about all the great rom-com, I mean, if you look at like when they talk about those great films of all time, and then from America, like Bringing Up Baby,
Mm,
His Girl Friday, and
yeah,
those type of films. I mean, rom-coms, and I think it's because, let's be honest, it's deceptively easy. That's the thing. You think it's easy, but it's really hard
It
because
is.
performers have to be on, and also too the dialogue has to be there, and it has to be very
yeah,
believable.
yeah,
Think about, I mean, the problem is like when you think about like rom-coms that are set in Japan. I mean, everyone automatically thinks of Lost in Translation here in the
Mhm.
States because that's the
right,
one.
yes,
And it's funny because it's like people will say that movie that some issues with it now. I mean, you could say about any movie that's like 10, 20 years old. But it definitely did set the template for, I think, well, I think it's interesting because I found a lot of films, especially set in Japan, wanted to be lost in translation after that. It almost like, let's do the slow pace, like chatty, kind of like, or
Yeah.
not chatty, but the not chatty, this sort of like this sort of slowly evolving film. But that being said, you're talking about Japanese films. I recently watched Previously Saved Version, which is on Amazon Prime here in the States, and it stars who's in that? That's Yuko Araki and
Okay. Yeah.
Hideaki Ito. And it's not really a rom com. It's kind of a creepy, kind of iRobot-y kind of movie. More like
Ooh.
Ex Machina.
Uh-huh.
But that being said, you can have these films. I was reminded where even the films that are kind of dark and can be a little disturbing, there's always a sort of humanity and sensibility that I find in so much of Japanese cinema. Even the
Yes.
dark stuff, even like that's part of what makes the horror so good, is that they
Yeah.
never quite lose the humanity that's sort of foundationally underneath everything. Where you almost feel sympathy for characters that you really shouldn't be feeling sympathy for, but you
Yeah.
kind of see in the end
right.
maybe they're just damaged, you know. And I think that's something that's wonderful that I've really appreciated about Japanese cinema and Japanese culture, is that even you see it in Crosspoint too. Like
Mhm.
certain characters, you start to realize, oh, well, these are actually really endearing characters, and they just sort of the way it sort of organically kind of grows
Yeah.
was really really fascinating. And so that's just kind of a lovely thing to be a part of.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate the
so you
mention.
are so you're still waiting for the next gig. So what do they do? They just get a hold of Star Management? How, if you're ready for your next big gig, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Oh, Star Magic?
Yeah, Star Magic. I'm
Or
sorry,
other,
Star Magic.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can just reach out to them through email or through my manager or through me, and then I'll relay it to my manager. Yes. We're very easy to talk to. I think Filipinos will be more than welcome, especially towards like international projects. So, yeah, the Philippines really want to branch out, especially now. So that would be a really huge opportunity.
Well, it's fascinating too because, like in the last weeks, 2 weeks ago, the episode was talking about how Thailand was taking their versions of Boys Love and Girls Love, especially
Mm-hmm.
Boys Love, and then it was coming back to Japan. So it'd be really interesting to see if other countries like the Philippines can sort of the influence can sway back and forth between different Asian
Mm.
countries, and I think that's what makes it all very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes the best stuff comes out of because we're getting all these different perspectives, especially when a lot of cultures tend to be kind of monoculture,
Mm-hmm.
to sort of swirl that around a little bit. Do you hope to be a part of more? Is there more Filipino types of projects, Japanese Filipino hybrid projects? Is it common? I should get asked that before we wrap up here.
Well, it's starting to become quite common these days. I know that there's a few really good Japanese Filipino movies from last year and from 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And some of them star some of my co-stars in Crosspoint.
What
So
are their
I'm not
names?
sure.
Do you remember their names?
So we have Plan 75.
Plan 75 just showed up on Criterion Collection. I have it on my list of
Yeah.
things to watch, or Criterion Channel here in the States.
Yeah, there's Plan
Yes.
75, and then there's one movie called Gitling. Oh, that's in Filipino. I don't know if they have an English title for that, but it's really nice. It's kind of like Lost in Translation as well. So I recommend that movie if ever it's coming out on online platforms. But
Nice.
then there's really quite a lot, especially now. I think the Japanese companies are also very interested in working with Filipinos, especially because there's a huge Filipino community here in Japan.
Right.
Right. Real
Yeah.
quickly before we go, Daniel Smith says, I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. And Daniel Smith's one of those guys in Japan who's just wonderful to know. And then I know like Hiroyaki,
Hiroaki? Hiroaki
Hironaki
Nakamichi.
said something about Walt Disney Resort. I have no idea. But he did say I saw something about Walt Disney Resort. Maybe it's an ad. Maybe he's trying to say something to us, but I couldn't figure it out.
Right. Well,
Right.
this comment came while Kay was talking
Talking
about
about AI,
AI
right?
and
Yeah.
yes, social media and how AI can help sometimes and sometimes it cannot. So, well,
Sorry,
probably
Nakaichi-san, we got to it too late. I apologize. Gomenasai. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Right?
That's all right. No, talking to Hiroaki, I believe.
Hiroaki. Yes. Well, thanks
Yes.
for tuning in, guys.
No,
Thanks for
thank
tuning in,
you.
Hiroaki. And
Thank
then I
you
think,
so
well, here we
much,
go. Yeah.
everyone.
Kurosawa-san, thank you for
Yeah.
joining us today.
Arigato.
Just one more thing.
Oh,
Thank you so very much, Kei. And I want to tell everybody who is watching us that, yes, Kei Kurosawa opened her account on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, if you're watching, you can reach out to her, send her a connect request so that you can connect there as well. Do not hesitate to do that. And I guess that Kei will be reaching out to some of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you, with well connection requests. So please make sure that you say yes. Well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Daniel Smith says really great show. Oh, thank you so very much,
Daniel.
Daniel.
thank
Thank
you
you.
very
We got to get
much.
him on the show one of these days, actually. Daniel, want to be
We
on our
should.
show? Well, we'll get him on the show, but next week or next 2 weeks. I always say next week, and it's 2 weeks, but it seems time goes by.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, the
We
next show.
we have some of Kei's friends. Donnie Orialis, the director of Crosspoint, and one of the performers, Sho Ikushima, who was
Yeah.
excellent in the film as well. They're going to be on talking about Crosspoint before the premiere, and I'm sure Kei will be probably checking in as well.
I'll be there. I'll be watching.
Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
thank you so for being us. Thank you. Words.
Thank you so very
Thank you for
much.
being on the show
Yes.
today, Kei.
Thank you,
Thank you
Kate.
for having me. This has been so much fun, and I'm looking forward to connecting with both of you too after this.
We will. Yes. And yes, so thanks a lot to everybody who stayed
Thanks
with
for
us.
watching, everybody.
And we're going to see you again in 2 weeks. And hopefully in the future, we'll have Kei with us again at some point when she's ready for it again. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Anytime.
Matane.
Thank you so much, Michael and Maya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.